The best way to learn isn't always to find the top expert in your field. I much prefer to find the person who is just one rung above me on the ladder, because a lot of times they're the right one to explain how I can take those next few steps. And this is especially true when it comes to coding with AI. And that's what this episode is all about. We're talking with my friend Kyle Zantos, who isn't a traditional engineer, but he's went all in on building with AI over the last year. And today he's going to walk us through his workflow. We're going to see how he plans his projects, how he scaffolds in V0, and how to get up and running with Claude Code. But first, I'm going to have him introduce you to one of my new favorite tools called Warp.
So Warp is a fancy terminal that has its own AI. I'm not using Warp's AI because I'm already paying for way too many AI services anyway.
Same.
So I don't need to buy like more tokens from another service, but it is a superior UX and little tools. It arranges things nicely. It has nice colors.
Okay, cool. So we're staring at the blinking cursor. How would you think about ways to get momentum on a project like this?
Brain dumping. If you're not using voice to text yet, you need to. It just
it's the way.
Yeah, it is the way. The models are so good now at transcribing. And actually, I've started using Monologue. Shout out to Every,
yeah. I haven't used it yet. Is it good?
Yes. Shout out to Naveen, the GM and creator of it. The differentiator for Monologue, and I've used Super Whisper, Mac Whisper, I've tried Whisper Flow, all the things. And a lot of the like transcription accuracy is like pretty comparable across the board for the most part, right? Most of them are wrappers over the Whisper models. You can have your custom dictionaries like you see here, and they work. What's nice about Monologue is it has these different modes, and it intelligently switches modes when you go to use them in different places. So when I'm brain dumping directly into Warp, it knows that I'm probably going to be talking about code stuff. And so the punctuation, the camel case, combining words together, when I say implementation-plan.md, it's doing all of that correctly. So let's just find out like what Claude Code knows currently and kind of where its gaps are. I want to make a new fantasy football app that me and my friends can use throughout the season. I know that there is a public, unofficial ESPN API that I think we can get some endpoints from. I think we'll probably need a database to store user information and scores and records and things like that. But I think that the direction we're going to go is probably to scaffold the UI in the initial project in V0, and then we'll bring that repo locally and use Claude Code to develop it further. So what clarification questions do you have so far? And do you have any gaps in your understanding of what's necessary for fantasy football apps in 2025?
I'm just going to underline that initial prompt. It's great. Like what clarification questions do you have as that first back and forth with the brainstorming model makes a lot of sense.
So now I'm glad that you called that out specifically. They just shipped a little feature. I don't know if you've caught it yet, but they made a separate UI for clarifications now.
Really?
When you're in plan mode, it should do it right here. It's really cool. It's just like 2 days ago or something, and I stumbled upon it. And then I was on Twitter and then saw them announcing it, and the guy that shipped it was talking about it. And it's so small, but I love it.
Real quick message, and then we can jump back into it. AI is making it a lot easier to contribute to the in-flight code base. So I'm knocking out polish tickets all the time. And now AI agents inside of Raycast make that easier than ever. Like, let's say that I see something that I want to fix. In a single hotkey, I can launch a cursor background agent, add a screenshot or any context that's needed, and then manage the entire process directly inside of Raycast. And you can ship code as quickly as it would take you to type up a new issue in Linear. It's a big deal for designers, and you can start using it today. Just head to dive.club/Raycast. All right, here's the thing. you don't need another dashboard. What you need to do is to talk to customers. So I want to introduce you to Genway AI. You can think of it kind of like vibe researching to validate your ideas quickly. Just draft your questions, select an ICP, and then their AI agent runs interviews on your behalf by pulling from a panel of global participants. I mean, you could literally set it up in the morning and get actionable insights by lunchtime. It's validation at your fingertips, and you can try it out free for 14 days. Just head to dive.club/Genway to get started. That's GENWAY. Okay, now on to the episode.
So now we have this little, you see these 4 tabs, and these are what it identified as like core key questions that it wants me. Isn't this dope?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so it says, will this app integrate with existing ESPN fantasy leagues, pulling live league data, or is it a standalone platform where users create and manage leagues entirely within your app? In our case, it's the latter. So we're going to select number 2. What are the core features you want in the MVP, draft system, weekly matchups and scoring, waiver wire trades, league management? And it says select all that apply. Great, because I was going to say, where do I say all of the above?
Oh, I can't get over the fact that they built an actual UI for this.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's so good.
Backend tech. What's your preferred backend stack? Next.js, separate backend, Supabase, Firebase. We're going to say Supabase in this case. Now we can review all of our answers. Yep, that all looks right. So that, again, happens when you're in plan mode. And that's, you can see that little hint text next to it. Shift tab switches between default mode, which is every single thing it's going to do, like an edit or anything, it's going to ask you if you approve for it. Then there's auto accept, and there's a certain amount of rules. It keeps it by default very on the safe end. And then there's plan mode. So this has a few more clarifying questions. NFL fantasy only, or do you want to support other sports? No, I don't care about other sports. What's the initial scale you're targeting? Small, friends only. Yeah, let's do that. Real-time features. Yeah, we want real-time. Web and PWA for sure. So PWA, having it set up to be PWA enabled, gets you that little hybrid of like, you're not getting, haptics or swipe gestures or all those real native features and all that stuff, but you do at least get a thing that you can tap from your home screen, just like an app, and not have the browser bar and just see a full screen app on your phone, which is great. So that's what we want. Okay, so we've got a couple more clarifying questions, actually just one. Ooh, now it's asking for some inspiration. Do you have any specific design or UX preferences or inspiration? Modern/minimal like Sleeper, classic sports like ESPN, hard pass. Sorry, ESPN. Just get it functional, or open input, so I can just type something. So how do you want to respond to this? You sent me an image of
I sent you kind of a mood board from our mutual friend Nick, who's also in the league. But I actually am kind of curious if this is something that you would even think about this early in the process, or if you would go.
I wouldn't normally.
Okay, then let's just do it how you would normally then. Let's make it functional, and then we'll worry about the styling later.
I'm actually not ready to decide yet on the styling and aesthetic. So let's just focus on functionality for now, and we'll add that in when we get to the prompt that we're going to feed to V0. Yeah, look, I mean, it's just really clean transcription. Yeah. You can see there, and it just like, I have custom vocabulary in here.
I was about to say, you probably have V0 as a custom vocab. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Especially in the code mode, it gets more of those than you'd expect. Okay, so here is the plan that it has. And what's nice about this plan is that if you go and approve their plan, Claude Code is going to make a to-do list for itself, and then it's going to go start knocking all those out. And it's really good at keeping up with it and creating it. Previous to this functionality being as effective as it is, I used to do the planning I would have an agent make me a markdown file that was formatted in a way that the AI agents could go in and mark X's in between brackets and stuff. Oh, yeah. You can still do that, but you just don't really need to anymore. And this is nice and clean. So we'll just glance through this. With all of this technology, like, yeah, you can trust planning and you can kind of YOLO it and just like see if it works. But the more familiar you get with this stuff, you at least, it puts it in reasonable terms too. It's not overly technical by and large. So
you're just kind of doing a quick scan right now to make sure that nothing looks glaringly wrong in the tech stack?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is that like what we're creating is such a known entity. There's so many just like absolute baseline table stakes to even accomplish this that there's not a ton of like, oh, you really misunderstood what I wanted, which that could be, it's more apt to do that depending on how descriptive I am when I'm creating a fully custom app from just trying to solve my own problems or something. Yep. In that case, when I make edits, I select number 3 here and say no, keep planning. You keep it in plan mode and then just say, I want to change this to this, and actually don't use that framework, use this other one. And oh, you misunderstood that. And then you keep feeding it and it'll just keep doing the same interaction that we saw. And it'll keep creating this little kind of separate UI thing for the plan and keep putting me to this place so that when I do say yes, it'll create its to-do list and then start knocking it out. So this looks pretty solid. And what I'm actually going to do in this case, because we want Claude Code right now to give us a good prompt to give to V0 to start the scaffolding. So I'm going to take this plan. That all looks good. Go ahead and transfer this plan to a new markdown file that you can create called implementation-plan.md. So this is to make sure that we hold on to it and that it will be able to reference this at any point. So we're going to save it. I've shift tabbed over to, I'll show you again, to accept edits on.
I'll be honest, I've been using Warp and I didn't even know that little code icon existed where you could see the file tree.
I remember when you and I were talking about it and I was complaining about the IDE extensions and I was going over to Warp. I was like, the thing that I miss is the file tree.
Is that just native or did you have to add something?
I just hadn't.
That's hilarious.
I couldn't tell. I was like, did I miss this the first
something? Yeah, you tabbed over to something and I was like, oh my God, there's a whole file tree. How did you do that? Like, I've been using Warp around the whole time.
Command Shift E, baby.
Wow.
That was specifically, I was like, I need to see the file tree and see the files. And the first time I spun up Warp after they kind of like rebranded and came out, I don't know, 4 to 6 months ago of like Warp 2.0, Warp code, all that. Yeah. I was like, this is cool, but man, I just got to have that file tree. Yeah. And couldn't find it. I don't know if they actually added it recently.
I don't even know.
Exactly. I know.
Like this breaks the definition of a terminal in my mind.
Because I can still, right? Like I'm still file viewing.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's nice. Okay. So we've got our plan here. So now we have it ready. So now so we're going to start the scaffolding of this app in V0. So give me a solid starter prompt to give to V0 and we'll iterate from there. So what do you want to say? We have that sort of mood board that we're borrowing from Nick in Primary Studio. What else do you want to like combine that with? Because it's a palette, it's a vibe, just to bring this back to our awareness.
From one of the earlier prompts, it's talked about how it referenced Sleeper as more like minimal design. So I almost wonder if we just say, hey, let's make it like Sleeper, but use this mood board and bring up the energy, use some of these neons in dark mode, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, so we'll point Claude Code to this image, which I already have stored in here already. And Claude Code does have vision, so it'll be able to see the image. And we'll drop the reference image into V0 when we hop over there too.
We're in Claude Code right now.
Correct.
Just to be clear, right? So why not just paste the image into this prompt, I guess?
I don't need to. I could, but because I just had already dumped the file into the parent directory that we're already in.
Got it.
So I can just go.
You're just going to reference it.
Like that. So when I symbol it, then I can pull from the file tree there. Let's have the app essentially have a lot of similar minimalism and aesthetic as the Sleeper app, but use the energy and color palette from this reference image that we already have in this directory. Okay, so we've got the prompt here. Oh, it even created a little markdown file for us.
Fun. Yeah, it does.
Oh, yeah. Have you noticed that too? This is another plus for Warp. When you open up a markdown file, it treats it visually for humans instead of showing the markdown file with just the pound signs and everything.
Yeah.
That is like still readable, but like, and you're reading markdown. This is styling it. This is like reading it in Obsidian or something.
Yeah. All in a terminal. It's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love this color scheme that I have it set to, by the way, too. It's just
I've already made a mental note that I'm going to switch mine to this.
Yes, dude. I love this one.
It's really nice. Quick high-level strategy question, because there's kind of two schools of thought here. Maybe you would have like a very simple prompt in whatever your tool of choice is, and then just kind of chip away from there, versus this is very much so the PRD style of prompting. Do you always go down this route? Is there kind of a strategy about when you reach for either path?
In this case, it feels like there's a lot of knowns in this that I don't need as much exploration on. So I want to go from nothing to something of substance that I can start iterating and adding on, right? So if I was making something, I was like, I think I wanted to do this, and I'm more in this exploring mode. I might do a little bit with Claude Code, or I might just go to a V0 and kind of start with something basic and start chipping away from there, or something like Subframe or something like that. Like I said, what we're creating is just such a known entity that I want to get to making this ours as soon as possible and not just the generic.
Cool.
Wow. This thing went nuts. Well, we're going to stretch you out, V0. Let's see what you got. I don't know that I've ever pasted in.
This would be my record too.
This is a big boy.
Okay, so talk a little bit about why you're reaching for V0 here versus just building something in your own local environment. Like, what role is this kind of tool playing for you?
Again, it's just that like zero to progress quickly, right? Yeah. So I could go to GitHub and find boilerplate, React, all that kind of stuff that then I could bring that in Claude Code and go from there. But who knows how that person set that up, and who knows what the documentation is like. Still totally viable. You could do that. Also, for prompting for visuals and style, you need to be pretty specifically good at knowing how to prompt Codex or Claude Code for aesthetic and UI, where the tools like V0 and Lovable and Bolt and all those are geared towards not people necessarily that are going to bring a repo into Claude Code and go from there. It's more so people that are probably going to stay in that platform. So it needs to be pretty visually oriented and look nice quickly and all that stuff. So in this case, this is going to get me to where I want to be to make it customized in exactly the way we want it to faster.
Cool. I'm excited to see how far you go in V0 before you pull it out.
That's going to depend a lot on
what we get,
how well it handles this full, lengthy, multi-page PRD as a single prompt. Now, okay, so I'll just do one more aside here. So it's so long that it was like, I ain't reading all that, and made a little file that was all this text, right? If my prompt wasn't as long, and it would have showed here in regular text, something I'll often do too, the enhanced prompt functionality is really interesting. It's tuned to V0's models it's on top of and all of its system prompts to change what you're saying into a language that V0 is most likely to be successful on. In our case, we're giving it such a structured prompt and everything anyway, it doesn't matter. But you might see in some iterations and stuff that we go from here, we'll probably use this. I'm so fascinated to see just like that color palette is not like that's not an easy win.
No, it's not.
and then the multi-page PRD as a prompt. V0 has impressed me on plenty of occasions, not always.
Looks like we have something.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. How are you feeling about this?
So it did make our whole app from our giant prompt. What's nice, I did need to do one extra little prompt too. I was getting a blank white screen. That happens sometimes. Cool little bit about V0 is they don't charge you for fixes that were of their own making. So I just told it, hey, I'm seeing a blank white screen, gave it a screenshot, and then it did one more, and that's that prompt you can see over here. it did one more run through, figured it out, and now I have an app. And again, that was
Nice.
a giant prompt. So far, it's the colors from our mood board from Nick's image. Not a lot of it coming through. there's a little bit here.
Yeah, a little bit.
But by and large, it's really going with that Vercel aesthetic on the color palette at the moment. So one thing that I'm noticing, because so much of fantasy football is consumed, played, whatever on mobile, and I'm just seeing a lot of big font, big elements. So I'm going to go ahead and before we do anything else, I'm going to get V0 to optimize this better for mobile. Right now, the app isn't especially optimized for mobile, and the primary use case for this app will be mobile usage. So let's take advantage of the limited space that we have in mobile and design accordingly, reduce font sizes and spacing allowances, including padding and margins in nested containers, so that we can fit in the appropriate amount of information and not have a bunch of critical information cut off.
I'm even making a mental note for myself now. Like, this is something that Claude didn't ask in that planning stage, that, if you're making something mobile first, that's probably like a dominant variable that you need to make sure that it's in that PRD. And I didn't think about it either.
Totally. You do want it to be both, right? Like you still want a desktop experience available. And so I was even just mentally, as you were saying that, I was kind of debating knowing that now, would I have gone back and changed my prompt specifically? And when I was saying to Claude Code, help me think of all the things that we want to for this to get a good prompt. Yeah, I wonder if I would have been better off saying, basically treat mobile design and mobile usage as the first class citizen and optimize for that.
That was the exact phrase that was in my head too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would. I think I would. I would probably say optimize first for mobile while still keeping in mind that we want it responsive. And that would probably be, if I was going all the way with it, I think I would probably start at mobile optimization and then graduate to, okay, at these breakpoints, let's build out our design system better. So it's not just responsive in that the elements are responsive and it works at these different sizes, but that it's actually optimizing the sizing of everything for the appropriate viewport. Mm-hmm. So you can see here, it actually went fairly aggressive on downsizing everything. Let's see what we got inside here. So a lot of the rest of this, are you noticing though that it seems like it only applied the prompt to this page? That worked well for the home page, but I want that same thing applied to all of the pages to be more optimized for mobile usage. Okay, let's see what we got here. All right,
it's looking a little better.
Yeah. Still got a few issues. It doesn't feel like it applied it as much there. Still have bigger fonts here. But that's something we'll deal with later. Let's just do the matchups part right now. So we have a reference image that I'm going to bring in just because I think it's going to align better to the general area of what we want, easier than just trying to describe it. So I have a screenshot here from the Sleeper app, and it just so happens that I was able to grab a screenshot from this week's matchup in which I am dominating Tommy Gioco. So let's bring this in. I'm including a screenshot from another fantasy football app that I'd like you to mimic as closely as possible for our matchups tab. Users expect to see their team and all the players on it and their scores and stats.
It's funny how much of design revolves around loading states now with these AI tools. Like, seriously, they're just 10 times more important than they've ever been.
Totally. And those patterns are interesting too, because I've seen a few people talking about it and basically like, what do we do with this time that we have now? And in this case, you're seeing some eye candy, right? Like the animation stuff. It's like, it just feels good. It makes it feel like it's progressing, it's working and stuff. But I've seen some others do it in interesting ways where they're giving you tips about the tool during that load time. And I really like that, especially with AI. Just like AI tools need so much proactive hand-holding and education about their app to their users, and little just cyclable tips like that, and having like a bank of 50 plus that also get added to it, like in real time as your app progresses and expands, I think is one of the best ways I've seen for using AI as processing time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's see if it got us where we needed to go from that screenshot. No, not even a little bit. All right, let's try again. I'm going to try to be a little bit more precise this time.
Hey, really quickly, let me tell you about the all-new Dive Talent Network. I've hand-assembled over 100 of the most talented designers and builders that I know, so I can recommend them to my favorite companies. So if you're listening to this and you're open to new opportunities, the Talent Network is anonymous and super low pressure. It's just an easy way to see what's out there without having to post on social media. So if you're interested in joining, or maybe you're looking for your next hire, head to dive.club/talent. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. So like, how do you specifically plan to iterate on that prompt above? I think that's a nice little thing that we could zoom in on for a second here, because it obviously didn't work. So what's the V2 plan?
What I didn't do effectively in this prompt, I think, is call out as much about, I want you to completely change what you have for the matchups tab, not what you had before. Instead, we're going to replace it with a view that shows the players that you started that week and the players on your bench for both players of that weekly matchup. What it's showing us right now, this UI, we might want it somewhere else at some point, but it's such a throwaway, like it's such kind of a like easy thing to recreate if we want, that I'm just going to say, just get rid of this. This isn't what users are expecting when they go to their matchup tab. So I'm going to try to spell out more, not what you had, instead this.
Got it.
The last iteration didn't quite match what I was looking for. So let me clarify. The screenshot that I have is what I want you to mimic and replace the contents that we currently have in the matchups tab. Most fantasy managers will expect to see a list of all of the players that they are starting that week, as well as the players on their bench and their scores, as well as their opponents in their weekly matchup on this same screen. So mimic our matchup tab as closely as possible within our design system to what's in this screenshot attached from another fantasy football app. That length of prompt is a lot closer to what I typically do. The extra tokens in most of these cases are negligible, so I lean towards over-explaining, emphasizing, articulating, giving context too. That's another thing that I try to do is not be as focused on the command and go do this. I'm trying to accompany that with context and explanation, and that usually helps its following of my command better when it is kind of with me in my brain and my intent.
I did notice that even the phrase most users would expect, I wouldn't use something like that very often. It kind of stood out to me where it's like, oh, a lot of times I'm still in PRD mode. I'm like, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you were kind of communicating the higher level context of, well, what is the goal here kind of thing.
Totally. And that's something that you'll see in your episodes and in other places. People like Pietro Scarano will talk about, and I really, even before he was on these recordings saying this, I'd started to absorb this. AI should not just be like, thinking of it like an employee, especially when it comes to coding, is like you're limiting the benefit from it. The more you can think of it like a collaborative coworker and be in each other's context windows and understandings and stuff, the better it's going to do at getting your intent, and you can spend a little bit less time prompt engineering. That's something that, like, when you put like back-end system prompts, I'm sure you've been experiencing this with in-flight, what you put in those text blocks are static, not dynamic. So their prompt engineering in those static prompts is super important. And that's where you can really get nerdy about wording and construction, all that stuff. Ideally, when you're creating and coding and things like that, outside of something highly technical, the more you treat it like your collaborative coworker that can think more like you, the more you let it into your head, the better it's going to perform. And so that's why voice to text is a huge unlock. Having tools that do it well is a big deal. And just getting in the habit of output, brain dump, share context, try as much as you can to let it in. And it's not 100%, of course, but it helps. And the mentality of thinking that way makes you use all of your AI in a bunch of different contexts more effectively when you're thinking of it from that framework.
It's cool. I've only really considered the value of voice to prompt as speed based, but you're right. It totally changes the way that I would prompt and communicate.
I'm probably not taking the time to type all this out, right? And I'm probably not, and I'm probably not even doing it in the same language. There's a different kind of like language that occurs to you, I think, when you know that you're saying it versus typing it.
Yep.
And I've just found that, the more that I talk out what I'm trying to accomplish, the closer it's getting to matching what's going on in my head right now. And AI is getting better at responding more to that.
Speaking of AI getting better at responding, let's see what we got here.
Exactly. Oh no. All right. We're gonna see if we can flame it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm actually kind of glad that this happens, because if it goes smoothly, it's not as applicable. Because I've been in this situation so many times where I'm like, that prompt will do it, and then nothing changes. So what's your strategy here?
I'm going to give it a little bit of an ass kicking.
Okay, you're going to turn up the heat a bit. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just typing this out because this is theoretically going to be quicker. But I'm saying you didn't do at all what I asked. The matchup tab still does not match what I asked for and provided the screenshot for. Did you misunderstand my request? This is frustrating because we've tried it twice and you didn't do what I asked. So as much as I'm leading into this humanity of like being a little bit angry, I also still say please plenty of the time too, which is so stupid, but yeah.
I'm still trying, because again, this is like such a common spot to be in. I've been trying different things. My latest thing that I've been trying is I just take a screenshot of what is there and then say something like nothing has changed. Like, why? Why do you think that nothing has changed? Like, why? Like, almost like make them have to
question yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, we're making a joke, but I do think that there's the technical value is sitting there. You're pointing at, you're looking at the wrong thing. If you thought you did what I asked you to, your reference point is wrong. And that's what we know that's what we need to change. Because if you read my instructions and gave me that, then you're missing your reference area. And so I did actually do exactly what you described. I screenshotted it and I copied it to my clipboard and forgot to paste it with my prompt. So I intended to do exactly what you described, but I didn't. Let's see if just my aggressive language. No. Let's see if this fixes it. Okay, this is gonna be the moment of truth. But we were just talking about it must have the wrong reference point, right? And look at the language that it's seen in its response. Oh, you're on the matchups tab, which I spelled out several times, but I need to give it some tude, like some unaware, high school dropout tude.
Big money.
Hey,
there it is.
Okay. I'm actually, man, I'm so happy that went that direction. It was the reference point.
Yeah.
So this is such a perfect example of prompt plus screenshot as much as possible. Show it the thing you're looking at that isn't what you want. Once I remembered to put in the image this time and also got a little bit more mad at it, it understood that the reference point that it was looking at before was wrong. And as soon as it changed that, look, this is exactly what we were looking for.
It's exactly what we want.
It's precisely what we were looking for. The colors, Nick's colors are coming through a little bit more on these badges. It's not bad.
Yeah, even just taking a second to appreciate the amount that we have built in a short time, you know? This is really a lot of code. This is a pretty functional product
that's
right
really
now.
True.
Where would you take it from here?
If I had a lot more strong opinions right now about style, I would probably be doing a little bit more of that while I'm in V0. Since that's probably, in this case, more of something I'll want to dial in more down the road, I think this is usually when I'd be pulling into Claude Code, because by far the biggest mountain to climb with this kind of app specifically, we're going to be reliant on a database and we're going to be reliant on an API. Those are not insignificant, and those are going to take way more time than stylizing it the way that we want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when it's like the real work is about to start. And when I'm feeling that kind of moment, that's when I'm bringing stuff over to Claude Code. So at this point, this is a quick connect to GitHub situation, and I'm just going to get this on my local machine so that I can get the repo up in Warp and get Claude Code going on it and go from there. What's nice in general about connecting this to GitHub kind of early on is that even aside from even if I didn't want to bring this local yet, it's still going to keep a backup that I own in my GitHub, right?
While you're kind of navigating this, maybe just talk through at a very high level, like for someone who just doesn't quite see the mental picture of why we're in GitHub, how this works, what are we trying to accomplish here?
Part of the reason that we're transitioning over to Claude Code right now and out of V0 is that it's where more serious, deeper work gets done more successfully. The reason that I got invested in going from designer who incorporated AI into my design process, and that was a lot more about user research and planning and text-based stuff, right? But then as the technology was progressing, then there was Lovable and Bolt and all this stuff, and V0, but Lovable was one of the first, what I now call vibe coding tools, which is a little bit more of that black box experience where you're not seeing as much of the code. It's a lot more natural language based. But I always hit the ceiling relatively quickly after I wanted any level of complexity. And that made me invest more in Cursor, because that felt like I was able to raise the ceiling more. And then as Claude Code and Codex and everything came along, even further. So now I'm in Warp and I'm bringing in the cloned repo from V0 into Warp.
I've always kind of seen tools like V0 and tools like Claude Code via Warp as almost separate paths. So it's really interesting to see how you're using V0 as a way to jumpstart the inevitable goal of getting something into Claude Code. Like that, even just as a high level mental model, I'm like, that makes total sense. I hadn't viewed it like that.
I don't know how much you cook, but I cook quite a bit. And so all of my, that's your wife's response.
Probably.
I've got all kinds of tools, right? I got my regular oven and my stovetop, and then I've got a countertop oven that's also an air fryer that also has more dialed in settings. I also have a sous vide for water circulation heating. I have all these different things that cook food. They heat food and make it edible, right? But they're all different tools. I'm rarely linear with any of them. It's always a combo of okay, I'm going to do that in the sous vide, and I'm going to do a pre-sear and a post-sear on my cast iron on the stovetop with that. But then I'm going to use my tabletop, and I'm going to air fry broccolini with that. And right. So I'm just, it's because I'm doing this kind of vegetable and I'm doing this kind of protein and I want it this way and stuff, that I'm choosing my tool stack within the kitchen. That's essentially how I think of building apps. There's all of these cool tools that a bunch of people have, and you don't have to stay in one lane or another. You can just keep stacking them per project, or, just what you get comfortable with and figure out, oh, this is my tool belt that works well for me. Okay, so I've got our repo up here. You'll see I already had Claude Code installed. It's super, super easy to install. Follow the instructions on the internet. The terminal is not as scary as it seems like. So Warp essentially is a really robust terminal tool that has a bunch of other things on top of it, but we're going to use it primarily as a terminal. And so I just use my initial command to make Claude Code exist in this repo. So before we do anything else, this isn't a robust app technically yet, but it's still good to start with that init command. And this is basically going to let the Claude Code agent crawl through the code base of what we have now, learn about it, and it's going to make a claude.md file that is persistent memory to your agent in every session. So every single time I clear the context window of Claude Code in the same session, every time I launch a new session, it's going to have everything in claude.md in its persistent memory. And so most of the time what it's going to put in there, it's essentially its version of a README, an important architectural, navigational details to keep the agent apprised essentially of what's even going on with this app. And so this is what it came up with that it wants to put in there initially. It's spelling out the point of the app, the frameworks we're using, some basic stuff about just, the architecture and the arrangement of the files and folders as it is. And we're going to say, that looks great. And once it spins this up, the other thing that I've started doing for the most part is getting a couple of the core MCPs in that I know I'm going to want to use. I know I'm going to want to make issues in linear. I know I'm going to want to make epics in there and everything. And I know that I'm going to use Supabase as a database. So I went ahead and created, I'll show you what I have here just to give a little bit of context, but it can be, they did build in a feature that's really nice for enabling and disabling MCPs. But really what you want to do is make it at the project level, not the global level, and bring them in per project, and then even disable them when you're not using them, because as you'll see in just a second, it takes up a lot of context. So I made this custom / command. The get MCP / command knows where I have my master MCP list stored, and that has my credentials in it by way of environment variables. So I'm not exposing any of my API keys. Literally, they're all pointing to it in the backend in a hidden .env in my own shell locally. But I have this set up to go to the appropriate place and bring it in. Say, can you set up the Supabase?
I'm just going to assume that for people who maybe know that MCPs are important, but that's about the extent of their knowledge, you can kind of let those use cases emerge as you get to the point where you realize, okay, I need Supabase, And, for me, I'm often using ChatGPT as kind of like my CTO that's looking over my shoulder, kind of helping me. My assumption is that I can just say, hey, whoever, ChatGPT, separate Claude instance, whatever, I think that I need a Supabase MCP. Can you just hold my hand? Just walk me through every step of the process, and it'll put you down a little, temporary rabbit hole, but it's probably quite attainable to just start there, even if you know absolutely nothing about how these are actually working. Does that feel correct?
Yeah, you can absolutely have it give you the step-by-step instructions, even in a meta way. Like I could tell Claude Code, I want these MCPs. What's the best way to bring them in? Give me step-by-step instructions. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like such a powerful phrase. I say that stuff all the time. So much of like when I'm contributing to prod now, I'll give like top level context that says, I'm not an engineer. My
Yes.
like second goal for this session beyond making the thing is to do it in a way that doesn't make my engineer mad at me when they're reviewing the PR.
I love that.
It like actually works because then Claude will like refer back to that point in the future and be like, this is here's the smaller change. I recommend going down this path because I think your engineer is going to like it more. And
Can
it's
I
like,
tell
I do it
you-
every time now.
Can I tell you what I would do if I were you?
Please.
If I were you, and we're getting that system confirmation here that it sees linear and Supabase now, and that they're ready to go, and it's looking at, so my custom / command created this file, populated the appropriate code snippets in here. So this is why I can use the MCPs now. Before I get to the next part of that though, if I were you, what I would be doing is if I hit the pound key there, it's to memorize. And so if I were you, I'd put in here exactly what you just said. So always remember that I'm a designer who is learning to contribute to our app via Claude Code and pull requests and stuff. Help me accomplish all my tasks in a way that will make my senior engineer, who's a real developer, not mad at what I do with Claude
Okay,
Code.
cool.
So I'd literally do I'd brain dump that into this. I'd hit enter and it's going to ask you, do you want to save that to your project memory or your user memory? And in your case, because it's always true, I would put it in user memory because that's going to make it any new repo that I'm using, it's keeping that part in mind.
I'm sure there's somebody watching this that is still like, okay, this is all great, a little bit intimidating. I'm committed to making it happen. Like, how do you actually get the thing up and running and at least get to the point where you're ready to start making changes? Can you talk us through what is needed?
Yeah. So I'm asking Claude Code to spin up the dev server so that I can just have a browser open and see the app.
I've never written that in natural language before. And I can't believe I haven't. That's crazy.
It's so weird. I've only been touching code literally. It's just about a year right now. 70% of my working hours are inside terminals now and just in code land, which is weird. But what that can start to do is like your thinking can be like, well, now I'm in code land all the time. So it's PNPM run.
Yeah,
dev,
that's where my brain went.
Right?
Which is it PNPM? Is it going to do
or is it
bun?
NPM or is it bun?
Like,
Yeah.
I never know.
That happens a lot. And that's valuable too. I'm trying to learn code in a contextual teaching way as I do this, even for as much natural language as I'm using. I still want to be a real boy. I still want to be a real dev. It's going to look different in this post AI coding agent reality, but I still want to know as much as I can and truly understand as much as I can as I go along and as I'm creating. There are times when I do remind myself, like knowing the exact run command of PNPM or bun or whatever it is for this particular project, because I have like 5 apps going concurrently at once most of the time. Just tell it to spin up the server. Just tell it in natural language.
Great. Boom. Just like that.
Yeah. And I'm going to put it in inspect just so I know that I can see it. I can throw this over here. You're just seeing some raycast command. So now I can see the changes. It's set up when you have it running in dev mode. Most of the changes that we make in here will populate here. So I can mostly see it, quote unquote, in real time. But now I've essentially set the table to be able, I could iterate more on what pages are in here, the UI, or where I would be more inclined to go is to get more into that nitty gritty of figuring out there's a lot of backend we're going to need to make this actually work. Those are unknowns that I want to make knowns much sooner and be put into plans.
Another question I have is how much would you even be thinking about GitHub and commits and staying organized on that front? Because I personally think GitHub Desktop was really easy to think through. Like I remember being so scared of the idea of doing it in the terminal, but
it's a great
Mac
point,
apps,
though.
It's really fantastic. I guess I'm kind of curious, like, are you not even at the point now where you're even paying attention to it and you're just like, let's just do a ton of stuff and then I'll commit it once I have something that I like?
GitHub Desktop is if you're still feeling a little bit intimidated with all of the commands and everything, you can execute the same things with terminal commands or using GitHub Desktop. Ease yourself in. Do yourself a favor with some reasonable UI. Get GitHub Desktop. You saw me earlier pull down the repo. I'm still doing it that way, just because I started doing it when it was way more intimidating. I just haven't shifted my process yet, but it's nice. It makes it easy to make new branches, to switch branches, it shows your committed changes that you put in a little summary and you commit and do a pull request. Right now, I'm not super focused on this. I'm personally more invested in the planning part and knowing what I don't know yet to inform the planning part. So in this, like the next moments are more of me interacting with Claude Code and looking into stuff and informing, oh, this is where we're going to find endpoints. This is probably some basic structure we're going to want, those kinds of things. So once I get into execution, then I'm looking a lot more at governing and maybe making some kind of system of, this is when we make a new branch. This is when we commit it. This is when we're going to do pull requests. And in my case, I'm starting to have separate CLI agents review. So I have Claude Code plan and execute. And then I'm sending Codex to review because it has that 1 million token context window. So I go look at the 6 issues that are status in review in linear that Claude Code, did over the last few hours. And you go review it as a senior reviewer, add comments to it, and shift it to done or changes requested if we're going to send it back to Claude Code to have it do some edits.
Oh, man. Well, you're definitely laying the foundation for a part 2 of this. I can already tell there's way more to tap into, but I really appreciate this kind of crash course in the beginning because at least for me, it has always been a little bit of a black box around, okay, cool. I hear people talking about use Claude Code, but how do I actually get there? How do I get something for Claude Code to operate with? And that blank canvas has always been scary, but I really like how you used and positioned V0 as almost an on-ramp into Claude Code. So that kind of 1, 2, 3 step makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that we got that walkthrough here because it does feel like it makes it a lot more attainable for people who are trying to get their feet a little bit more wet.
Totally. And for everyone who's feeling that way, I am you a year later. Like I had never touched code at all. I started messing with cursor initially and then dialed back to more of the levables and stuff like that before going back to cursor and leveling up from there. But I hadn't touched it. And even when I got more proficient with the other tools, Claude Code is still like, I know everyone's talking about it, but boy, that looks scary. It's not that scary.
I've seen it for months.
Yeah, it's not that scary. It's just Claude. It just looks different, but you can still talk to it the same way as you do with AIs. And really the answer to how I get started is just get started. Follow the instructions to install it. Get some kind of code base that you could experiment on, like make a branch that doesn't matter, and just start experimenting and learn by doing. It doesn't have to be consequential. You just need the reps of working with it and learning the nature of a non-deterministic material and technology that is AI.
Really appreciate you taking the time, Kyle. This was fun.
Absolutely. This is super fun. And I look forward to pulling this thread further into another chapter.
Same. I can tell we're just getting started.
I know. Thanks, man.